All right, so welcome to our Agile Groupies meetup this evening on Agile at Home, the daily art of managing your overwhelm. So I'm really pleased to be with you here today, and I'm really honored to be with everyone that's joined. Pardon me, I still keep admitting a few people in. I am Helene Gidley, founder of A2 Agile Inc., an organization that helps people on their Agile journeys. And I've been in the field for many, many years and have spent time in various roles, and managing my time and managing my work tasks has always been kind of my passion, finding better ways of doing this. So regardless of where you are in your career, right, whether you're a student or early, mid, or seasoned in your career, you're here to learn really how to manage, right, your overwhelm of things that are hitting you, of work and personal tasks. You probably recognize that you need to do something maybe a little differently. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you are probably, likely, all very smart people. Yet getting your work done is indeed a universal struggle for many of us. And I'm going to cover why and what you can do about it. So many books, certainly many books have been written over the years on this, and many techniques and methods exist on this topic. And you've likely tried things, maybe some of the things like this. I see there a book David Allen wrote in the 90s on getting things done that was really popular at the time. There have been many books written since then. You might be using things like a Trello board or checklists. I saw someone mention that in the chat window earlier. To-do lists. You may even use some of the electronic tools like that our computer providers provide, like the Microsoft My Day task list. You may be trying a number of things, and you're likely here because some part of that just isn't working. So I'm going to share with you the method that I'm using, and how the method that has evolved from the Agile methods that we use in the software industry. So the Agile methods really begin, the background on Agile is first thinking about small chunks, right? Doing things in small bits to be able to feel some sense of accomplishment, to break our large, complex tasks down into something smaller and more manageable for us. So small chunks is one of our key secrets to getting work done. Focus, expanding and enhancing our focus on the work we are doing at the time, so that we are not being distracted by a million other things, that we're not trying to do too many things at once, where we keep focus on what we're working on. And feedback on to ourselves on the work that's getting done. Is it appropriate? Is it working well? Is there anything that I should be modifying or changing? And feedback from others, if there are things that we're working on that we can give small bits of it to others to review and get feedback on, are we on the right path or not? So these are really some of the real heart of Agile. And these small tight feedback loops, focus, and small chunks. And despite our efforts to really write everything down and use all these checklists and methods and tools, many of our to-do lists are still in our head, something we're carrying around here. We carry that around daily. These are things that are just crowding out our abilities to stay focused on the task at hand. And I don't know about you, but this is one of the, whether it's a positive or a negative of working from home, but as many of us work from home, you might find yourself as you walk from your desk to the kitchen to get a glass of water or a cup of coffee. And on your way, you may be seeing a list of things that need to get done. Oh, the dishes in the sink should be washed, or the clothes washer just finished, or yes, it looks like that the kids need to pick up their toys again. The dog needs a walk, and on and on. All of these things are starting to gather up in here. And you go back to your desk and maybe you've gotten 5 more emails. And now you're beginning to struggle with, how do I keep track of the things that I didn't want to forget? And how do I get things done that I really did want to get done? And how do I manage all of that? And my Agile at Home method is a way to give us just that way, that approach to get everything out of our heads, and which is in a conceptual fashion, and get it into some concrete medium. And I do this by really capitalizing on a tactile sense. And that's why I talk about having a kinesthetic approach to the way I manage the work. And really, it is taking something that is just conceptual in nature and turning it into something concrete. And by doing that, by having something physical in our hands, we're tapping into the way our brains really have been designed to work over the years that we've been around as humans, where the brain is really getting feedback from the muscles and about how the body is moving, and it becomes engaged. When you pick up something like this little sticky and you manipulate it, you're engaging the brain, and we further our focus on that and our attention on that one item. That item becomes real, not just a concept. So we kind of pick up some of one of the learning styles being kinesthetic, and by having things visual, we pick up on a visual learning style. Audio, when I decide to read it out to myself or to someone else that I have a task that I'm working on. And reading and writing, because I will read these and I will write them down. So I'm actually tapping into multiple learning styles on this, and it really begins to engage my brain in a different way. And it really begins to help us manage the work that we have that's affecting all of us. So my method is actually very simple, and I'm going to share it with you right now. It's 7 basic steps, and we focus on our daily activities. We define the work, we estimate the work, order it, do it, give time to review the day, we update a backlog of work, and we take care of outstanding items. So rather simple process, and being very kinesthetic. As I shared with you, some of the things you'll need for today's session, I'd ask you to bring some paper, some blank paper, 7 sheets of it, and to have some sticky notes, some little, and I prefer the little ones if you can get them. If you don't have little ones and you happen to have just one of the big ones, the 3x3s, now let me just grab one out. If you have to have just the 3x3s, no problem. You can always take it, rip it in half. You now have a little one. That works too. So whatever stickies you have, trusty pen or pencil, that we can use to begin to transform concept to concrete. And as I mentioned, tying into that brain motivation of physically moving things and physically handling things and moving things from one mode to another is a reward for our brain. We call it brain candy. When I get to see that something is actually done, I have a check mark on it, and I move it from one column to the other, and I get this little rush of endorphins that, oh, something got done. And that helps keep me motivated and going for the next activity. Sound interesting? Sound like you're ready to try? Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to try. I see some thumb. Yes. Okay. So let's go. What's on your mind right now? So take the stickies, whatever size you've got in front of you, and your trusty pen or pencil, I'd like you to write down at least 3 tasks that you've got in your head right now. Make at least one of them, I'll say class or job related, and one of them home and personal life related. And the tasks that you write should be small to complete within 2 hours, and use your little Post-it notes. So we're just going to do this right here. So start writing, and I'll get the little timer going. All right. And I'm going to write some too, because I've got tasks that I may need to keep track of. Few seconds left. It looks like I've been watching people busy writing, creating. Wonderful. All right. How did that feel? Begin to break things down, get them out of your head. Did you get a lot of stickies and Post-it notes out there? Good. Hope so. Got a nice list. Well, let's talk about that. Really is the first step, right? Defining the work. Just beginning to define the things that we have to do that we're carrying around in our head. And let me walk through a couple of examples that I have that I've used, that I have existing now, and then things that I've had. They might look like I have a report to write. I've spent many years as a project manager, and things like status reports were almost a weekly thing. So writing a report was often on my list. Giving a talk to Mari's group, a neighbor of mine who's also a professor at the university, and I'm giving a talk to her group in a couple of weeks. I have a lot to prepare for that. And email. I don't know, I must be odd, but I just have emails that come out like crazy. Every day I seem to have an influx of email in all of I have more than one email account. And it just seems like I'm overwhelmed with email. And nearly every day, I've got to spend time combing through it and just getting on top of like 100 that I may wake up in the morning with. So this starts to feel like work that I have. These are kind of big, right? They feel like they're still overwhelming for me. Getting started on that report. What does it mean to give that talk to the Mari's group? And oh, my email, I don't know, which one should I work on? So I begin to break things into smaller bits. So remember that first slide with the rocks laid on top of one another? I need to now take that first one, like the report, and break it into something smaller. And here's my first approach. Well, let me just start writing. I'll do a first draft. And let me identify, I'll use like a bullet list of things that I don't have material for yet. I can probably get like a skeleton of a report out in one small chunk of time. Then I can do a second draft where I start to fill in those items, and maybe I need to get things from other people. So I wait and gather them and can fill in, and then I'll do the final version. So I've taken that one task and begun to make it into something a little bit smaller. And notice each one of these are more outcome focused, right? What do I get at the end of this, right? I'm trying to keep them into something really focused. Doing my talk for my neighbor and the professor. Well, that turned out to be rather large, right? So I had that one task of like give the talk to Mari's group. Well, I needed to draft an abstract for it. I would revise the abstract for the talk. I'd get the information to Mari, the abstract, the photo, the PDF, the planning sheets, the needs for Post-it notes. She's getting this talk, by the way. I need to review the notes from Mari that I had with her, and I needed to identify changes to the slides, anything that I needed to adapt or adjust. Update the slides. Updating the slides might be more than one sitting. So I broke it up into a couple of passes, a first pass, a second pass. Maybe I need to update images. I could see that already, that I needed some image changes. So you see, I started to break things in, even though I really didn't know, I hadn't started on the project at all. I knew that there was work that I needed to do, but I just started to break things down into small chunks. And each time thinking more, keeping it as a outcome focused activity. And my email. Happens almost daily. I scan through the email and delete any that can be deleted. All those junk emails that I seem to keep getting, even though I asked to get off the mailing list, and a week later you're back on it somehow. So I get rid of things that just can be deleted, or create rules for things that will get rid of email. Then I'll identify what top 2 or 3 need immediate attention. There might be some in there that actually need immediate attention and respond right away, because those are kind of the urgent things. And next, I'll start to scan through it and begin to sort things, maybe by project. And I'll put them either in a holding folder or put a tag on them and begin to organize where they should go and to take action on. So here was something that kind of felt big and unwieldy, and I started to break it into something a little bit more manageable for my day, and manageable in my work activity. So I've given you 3 examples of how to break things down, right? Especially this big complex one that really felt rather large, doing the report. And I'm going to ask you to do your own. So what I'm actually going to do is give you a chance to work in pairs. So let me I'm going to break you up into breakout rooms. And I'm going to ask you to work with others. And there we go. I want you to be able to work in pairs. So there we are. Create 5 breakout rooms for the looks like 12 participants that we have. And I'm going to ask you to work in pairs, use these small Post-its, and take the list of things that you already have. You probably have a bunch of things that are sitting on your desk that you wrote in that first session, and work with each other and begin to break them down, right? Work as pairs. We're going to have, I think this is a 4-minute timer, 4 minutes. And I'll ask you to spend that time working with one another. All right. Does everyone make sense on that? I think one group has 3 people, but just about everyone else has a group of 2. I'll let you go. We'll have 4 minutes. Oh, and I should double check, what do I have down as a auto close? 4 minutes, and I'll give you a 60-second timer at the end. So when the rooms finish after 4 minutes, you really have 5 minutes to work on this. Sound good? All right, I will let you go off. Enjoy.
Yeah, hi. I just happened to join just before this activity began, like about 2-3 seconds ago. And I actually registered so sooner. I mean, just so much before this event began that I didn't knew about this post-it note. So unfortunately, I didn't knew. So, but anyway, I was able to come up with 3 tasks, and I was able to divide those 3 tasks. And
Yay.
yeah, that's. I'm sorry, I just don't have my post-it notes. That's all I can say. If you want to, I can put it in chat.
That's wonderful. I'm excited that you were able to create some on the spot like that. That's perfect. Welcome back, everyone. And Nirav was just sharing that he came in just before the exercise started and was able to at least create a few things on the spot. So I'm glad you're able to find it useful. How did it feel for everyone? Did you begin to break things down a little bit and create some smaller tasks out of those bigger ones that you may have started with? Thumbs up if you were. Thumbs up.
Yep.
I need more stickies.
Need more stickies. Oh, yay. Yay. Yes, yes. And that is not uncommon. That is not uncommon. And people can hear me, right? So I see someone is saying she can't hear me. Yeah, okay, Duncan says you can. All right, good. So for the woman who can't, I'm check the audio on your device and see if it's maybe going somewhere else. Of course, she can't hear me, so that doesn't help. So let me move you through the next step. So you completed the first step, which was breaking your work down. And my next step in this process is to take the work that you've broken down and to estimate it. And here's my little work aversion behavior, this little odd behavior thing that I have. And that is, despite how well I might break down my work and how organized I feel I am, that I've got my day laid out and I've got all the tasks ready, you know, there are still times where I will look at something like doing that first draft of a report or, you know, looking at an email, and I'll just go, I just don't feel like doing it. Am I alone? Am I the only one who has this weird work aversion behavior that I'll look at a task and I know it doesn't take much. It's probably not a big deal, but I just don't feel like it at the moment. And I'm always amazed at how much that does impact me and affect me. And I found, and here's my secret, that the moment I put an estimate on there of how long I thought that it really would take to do that activity, suddenly that cleared up that work aversion problem. Because I'd look at that one and say, oh, it's only 5 minutes, or it's only 15 minutes. Well, I've got my watch. I've got 15 minutes or 5 minutes between now and when maybe something a hard demand on my time is, or I've got 5 minutes, I can do that, and that's not a big deal. Suddenly, that estimate enables me to get over that hump and actually get something done. And honestly, to get work done, how can I schedule something if I don't know how long that something will take anyway? How do I know how much work I can do in a day if I don't have any idea of the time that it would take to get something done? And I'm finding that this is becoming a key motivator to getting things done by being able to have a small, you know, I have an estimate on there. So I get a small sense of how long something would take. So here's an example of my email, you know, what that looks like on a regular basis to be able to work through it. I tend not to do anything less than 5 minutes. So even if it really does only take a minute, great, I'm ahead. I have more time to give to something else. And so if it takes 5 minutes, great, then it takes what I estimated. Here's the estimates I put on for doing that talk for the professor's class. I broke it from 1 minute, I did 30 minutes, 15 minutes. You know, I really looked at it and how long would some of these take? And admittedly, I might not know how long it would take to update my slides or update images. I mean, you can go down to rabbit holes and you could be spending hours on these things. Sometimes my estimates are my time boxes, my limits. You know, spend 30 minutes on updating those images on those stickies. Do that first pass. Let's not make that a rabbit hole where I spend hours playing with, you know, slide images and hunting for pictures. Let's just try to make it something small and concrete so I can just get going on it, and then I can come back to it so that each time I work on it, it doesn't feel overwhelming. And I feel I'm getting a sense of accomplishment each time that I'm spending my smaller defined periods of time on it. So here's this one breakdown of the talk and breaking things into smaller chunks, right? With these estimates really allows me to schedule the work better into my day. And I'm going to share one more, the report, breaking it into a couple of 1-hour tasks and a 45-minute task. Just thinking of a way of spending my time on these activities, where I spend my minimum, as I mentioned, be 5 minutes, and I never schedule anything more than 2 hours if it's a task that I'm working on. Because when I look at my estimates, what I'm really saying is, how much time does it take me? What do I think it would take me to work on this one task uninterrupted and totally focused? And to be honest with yourself, how much can you really work on totally focused and uninterrupted. How long? An hour? 2 hours? Can you go more than 2 hours in being totally focused and uninterrupted? Likely not. Yeah. And that's just exactly what I find. Likely not, that my uninterrupted time is actually shorter. So write my tasks shorter to keep that within that period of time. And let me deal with the interruptions that I know are going to come, because I'm really trying to work on my focus. When I'm focused on something, I really do it better, right? The best of me occurs by being focused. So now I'd like you to do the same. So now that we've got that sense of our tasks, we've written them down. I've talked about the size and how I've used estimations. I'd love to have you do the same. So I'm going to have you work in the same group that you worked in before, the same pairs. And I'm going to have you put estimates on all your tasks. So work with your partner and create some estimates. We'll do another 5 minutes, 4 minutes on the task, and we get 60 minutes to come on back. Remember, 5 minutes minimum and a 2-hour maximum. You ready? I'll let you go and have some fun. Welcome. Welcome back. Welcome back. So how did that feel? I'm going to leave the chat window open in front of me. So how did that feel to begin to break your work down? Were you able to provide some estimates? Kind of be able to put a couple of estimates around things, just some quick estimates, even if it's a time limit, just put something on there to get you started, so that to help with some of our odd behaviors, right? Our work aversion behaviors, or I had someone even mentioned, yes, my procrastination behaviors. We all have those, right? So I'm glad I'm seeing it as someone, and people saying, Duncan, that maybe it makes it seem more manageable to be able to start to estimate it. And yes, that is the idea, beginning to make it feel more manageable. Now, I'll give you the real tip. You notice I had these as 2 separate steps. We wrote our work down, and then we estimated it. I had those as 2 steps. When I write my work down initially, I put the estimate on it right away. Right? I wanted to present it to you as 2 separate activities, but every time now, when you're going to write down a task, you're going to write the task down and you're going to put an estimate on it the moment you write it down. Right? So I create a task. I think this one, oh, there it is, grocery shopping, 1 hour. When I created that task, I wrote it, I created the estimate and put it on there immediately. So that's your little quick shorthand that takes 2 steps and made it 1. All right, so now that we have them estimated, we've done the first 2 steps of our work planning activities. The next is ordering the work, right? Beginning to put some kind of order to the work. And we're really, there's 2 ways to look at this: order versus priority. And I love there's a reference here. There's a nice quote, and this came from Dwight D. Eisenhower, former president right after World War II. And during World War II, he was the supreme leader of the combined Allied forces. And so he dealt with a lot of problems, and he dealt with a lot of activities, if you can imagine. We're talking war here. And his quote was, "I have 2 kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." And when you parse this, you realize what he's saying is, if all I'm doing is responding to urgency, right, the thing that sort of jumps at me at the moment, I never get the important work done, right? I never get the things that I need to get done. Urgent stuff are the things that like run in at you and that somehow you feel like you have to handle. So we really want to start working on managing the work, the things that are going to come in at us, but making sure we have a process to enable us to get that important work done. So let me give a couple of examples. So what about setting up auto pay for rent, utilities, and cell phone so that I don't forget to pay a bill. We can agree that this is an important task, something I need to get done. Attending a client meeting, especially if that client meeting is happening in 5 minutes, right? Which task, how do I order what gets done first, right? Which is the priority? I can say, I definitely need, this is an important task. I want to make sure I get this done. And so is attending, but is it more important than attending that meeting that's happening right away? So I start to look at things that I want to make sure I get done and the things that are coming at me, and I start ordering them. And maybe my client meeting happens right away. I put that on my ordering sheet early, and I make sure I have a spot for the important things like the auto pay for the rent and utilities, so that still gets done. So let me start walking through ordering a little bit more. Now that we understand that we kind of have two ways of looking at it. And when I start thinking about ordering my work and my priorities, I start running into something I call the 8-hour-a-day myth. And this is the myth that if I'm working for an employer and I work on, say, an 8-hour day, I have 8 hours I give to the employer, I should be able to schedule 8 hours worth of work for them, right? And I remember I'm managing both work and personal activities here. So I've got 2 or 3 hours of time at home that I can work on personal activities every day. So I'm up to what, 8 to 10 to 11 hours of work that I should be able to schedule in my day And guess what? If you actually schedule that much time for you, that much work for you, you will find you won't get it done. You're going to find yourself overwhelmed. And that's where I come into the 8-hour-a-day myth. Why does that happen? And a lot of us enlightened employers have realized over the years that it really is a myth when you say I've got 8 hours that I could spend in an employer time and that I have 8 hours I can truly give to it. I don't really have 8 hours. I have something much smaller because things happen. I'm checking email. I actually need to get up and go use the restroom occasionally. I need some time for lunch. I may have the unplanned phone calls, text messages, Slack messages that are coming in, DMs that come in. If I'm in a physical office and I'm working with people, there might be the pop-in, someone who pops in next to me and says, hey, Helene, about that report, can I bend your ear on something? All of these unplanned activities take time away from those 8 hours. You're lucky if you get 6 hours. And that's why I say most enlightened employers actually recognize that. So never schedule 8 hours for the 8 hours of time that you have for your employer. Always schedule less. And I kind of go with the 6 hours and work from there because of all of those other demands on my time, including just walking up and down the hall occasionally. And walking around the house occasionally to stretch your legs because you've been sitting for 2 or 3 hours. When I start ordering my work, I also start indicating the hard demands on my time. And you got to see a hint of that in that previous slide where I included the attend a client meeting. Those are the hard demands on my time. And those are the things that might be on your calendar, right? So we talked earlier at the beginning, I do use calendars. There might be something that, you know, it's a hard demand. It happens at 9 a.m. I've got to get to that client meeting. We often forget to indicate and account for those hard demands when we admit and when we agree to do additional work, or even when we plan out our own work. We kind of forget that I've got an hour here for a client meeting, another hour there, and I've got to prepare for the meeting. I have to walk to the meeting or join remotely, and I've got to take notes from the meeting and get my head straight after it and see what takeaway items and action items that I have from that. All of that are hard demands on my time, and they often get neglected. So my rule of thumb is include the hard demands on your time. And then I start ordering items on that sheet of paper, and you're going to see that in a moment. Let me just bring it to you. I'm going to order the items top to bottom, left to right. So the very first top item is my identify top 2 or 3 email items that need immediate attention and respond, 15 minutes. Right, and that starts to show my day. So my day starts to look like, it's a bit of like a calendar. And notice I put in there, gather materials for the first meeting and attend my first meeting. I'm including my hard demands on my time. So so you think you have a lot of sticky notes now. Now you're going to add the hard demands on your time. And you're going to see why you struggle, when many of us struggle with getting everything done in a day, because I'm always saying the day isn't long enough. We neglected to reflect all of the demands that are happening on our time. So you start to see how I put things on my planning sheet. I worry about what's important, right? Start to get those email items of my top 2 or 3 that require immediate attention. That maybe I can get through the rest of my email and scan through and get that taken care of. Maybe there's a workshop I'm attending. I know I'm going to schedule in maybe a short walk after that, work on my abstract, produce a first draft of a report that's due in 3 days. And maybe this evening I'll set up that auto pay for the rent, utilities, and cell phone. Right, so I start to see how the day is going to just be fleshed out. And I try my best to cater to the best time of my day. If I'm more of an afternoon person, I do my best writing kind of in the afternoon. Well, then that's why I scheduled my first draft of the report back there. If I'm more of a morning person, I might have put it up a little earlier, when I tend to be a little better, more alert and better at writing. So I cater to my best time of the day. So I start to really work things through. Now, this is just for one day, right? So now you see, here's my one sheet. I put a little Monday on the top, and I'm starting to order the week. Well, what about all those other stickies, right? You've got a desk full of stickies. Jean, you had a whole tray of stickies, right? Yes. So they're not all getting done today. What do I do with the rest? So the rest, I start to do a straw man weekly plan. Just that report was due in a couple of days, right? So it was Monday and it's due by Wednesday. So Tuesday I do the second draft, Wednesday I do the final draft. All right. And maybe on Tuesdays there's a project meeting that I'm going to run. And there's a home task, dust the dining room, not just dust the house, dust one room. Produce a final report, attend a department meeting on Wednesday, meet with the staff on Wednesday for an hour, right? Thursday's got its activities. Friday has activities. Some of those tasks, right? Not everything needed to get done today. Let's take a look at where they might logically go. And let's just put we call these a straw man or a draft plan. Let's just get a general sense of how this would go. And here's where I take if you've heard the story, out of sight is out of mind. And here's where I take this to the advantage. I'm going to take a lot of this work that generally is either on a big to-do list that's just staring at me in the face all the time and making me nervous that I have all this work to do, or sitting up here in my head, weighing me down, making me feel like I've got all this work to do and how am I ever going to get anything done? And I get it out into something tangible. I put it on those other days. And now when today is Monday, guess what I'm looking at? Just Monday's work. All of these other tasks and all these other days worth of activities are just sitting folded up underneath my Monday task. And that's all I'm looking at. And here's mine, right? Here's my Monday task. And that's all I look at every day. Every day I look at just that day's worth of tasks. I know all of my other work is there. And if I'm worried about it, I can just pick up that sheet of paper and take a peek at the next day. It's like, oh yeah, I got that covered. Oh yeah, when am I writing? When am I meeting with the manager? Oh yeah, that's Thursday. So now I take the out of sight, out of mind being something that enables me to maintain my focus on today's activity. And that's what we're really trying to do. Keep my focus on, improve my focus on what I'm working on today, getting the rest of that stuff out of mind and taken care of. and allowing me to really maintain that progress of getting things done. And note the impact of visualizing your work on how this is really a nice advantage of being able to just see how the work would go. All right, make sense? You ready to try one on your own? So I'd like you to draft a weekly plan for the items on your to-do list, right? All these stickies that you've now created and you've estimated. Use your Monday to weekend sheets. Today is Monday, it's already done, nearly. So you'll be starting with Tuesday through Friday. And I use just one sheet for the weekend. If your weekends are really crazy, well, grab another sheet of paper and make one Saturday and make one Sunday. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes and we're just going to do it right here together. So just spend time on your own, working things and starting to put them on your sheets. And I'll update mine while we're at it. I created more things too. Oh gosh. And while you break things down, you might even notice there are new tasks you're writing and estimating, like I'm doing right now. Great. How's your pass on your sheets? You've got some sheets going? Got your sheets planned? Give me a thumbs up, either in person or in the chat. Got something going? First pass on, great, I'm seeing some thumbs up. A first pass at a weekly plan. Great. Now that we've got it all planned out, it's going to work perfectly, isn't it? Because, I mean, all plans always work perfectly, right? I hope you're all laughing as I am. No, they don't. They don't always work so perfectly. And so we get to the next step of the process, which is called doing the work. And for here, I want to share a little story. And here's my mask story. So back when the pandemic started, and finding masks were very hard to do, nearly impossible to get. I started, like many people, getting out that old sewing machine, digging up some old fabric and making masks. And I started getting pretty good at making masks, and I got new patterns down off the internet and was getting pretty fancy at making a mask. It had one color on the outside, one pattern, and then a different pattern on the inside, maybe just like a black. You know, I've made over 200, 300 masks at some point and stopped counting. And you start getting a little cocky at that you think you're doing really well at this and say, I can do this stuff with my eyes closed, right? So I would sit up in the sewing room and I started bringing up my iPad and I started watching something like the Great British Baking Show, which started to distract me a little bit. And at one afternoon, one evening, I was watching the Great British Baking Show, and I was so focused on watching what they were making and looking at what they were putting into the bread and how it was rising and all the proofing they were doing, and just really engaged. And the mask that was supposed to look like this with one pattern on the outside and one on the inside turned out to be this. Instead of and I looked at this after I looked down and went, holy crap, what did I just create? I was so distracted by watching that show that I lost track of what I was doing. And this is where I come into the perils of multitasking, because here I thought, oh, I could make these masks, with my eyes closed. Well, apparently not. Apparently multitasking really does take brain energy. And as good as we like to think that we are at it, multitasking really does impact. It really is a detriment to our ability to focus. And here was my living example. So when I start talking about doing the work, now we work on the item at the top of the list, one item at a time. I'm not going to try to do 2 or 3 things at once. I do one item at a time until all items are complete or the day is complete. So I'm trying to improve my focus on just that one activity. And if that one activity it feels like you have to wait for something else, then you write another sticky. I'm done with that activity. I'm waiting for something else to happen. I then move on to the next, right? What about unplanned tasks? We started talking about that urgency thing early on. What happens when we have unplanned tasks? What should we do with them when they hit us? Any ideas? What do we do with everything? We write them down, right? So the minute that there's an unplanned task that's coming in at us, someone asks us to help them with their report, or if someone needs data from us, the first thing I'll do is I'll write it down. And then I'll ask, do you really need this done right now? Do I have to drop everything to make this happen? Or can it be done later? Or maybe tomorrow? Or do I have to do this? Or is this something someone else could do? Right? So rather than just grab and saying yes to everything, the first thing I'm going to start to do is respect that they've asked me something, but then ask, how important is it? And then I update my plan accordingly. So if I put it on today's plan, if it's something that really did need to happen, and it's maybe one of those really urgent things, what other thing isn't going to happen today as a result of this? Update your plan, maybe move something off the list and it goes to another day. Because life does happen, right? The emergencies do happen, and we do have to drop everything occasionally and go handle it. But I do ask you to write it, estimate it, and ask those questions. Do I really have to do it? Do I really have to do it? And when does it really need to get done? And I want you to note as you look at this sheet that as I complete things, I do that big nice check mark on it and I move it to the right-hand side of the paper, right? This is part of that brain candy of being able to see work get completed and move from one place to another, right? And then move off my to-do list, it's a done list. And as that done list keeps growing, I start to feel better and better about the day because, well, I actually was getting a lot done. So that's what my day should start to look like. And I want to share a little bit more, as so many studies have talked about multitasking and the perils of multitasking. And my mask story notwithstanding, for you, there might be other great stories you could share on your multitasking. And if you've ever wondered why you kind of lose track of what you were working on and why things seem to take so long with the more projects you're working on, there have been studies that show, and here's a more quantitative view of it, or qualitative view, and that is, if I'm only working on one project, the amount of time I have to work on it is 100%, right? I'm totally focused. The moment I start splitting my time between two things, like watching the Great British Baking Show while I'm trying to sew, good thing I didn't sew my fingers together, I now have dropped my attention span enough that I'm now losing some time to waste. Right? Because I'm always having to switch between the two efforts, the two projects, the two tasks. The moment I start jumping to trying to juggle 4 or more things, I have now succeeded at creating more waste in my day than work that I'm getting done. Because all I'm doing is switching between one thing to the other and remembering, where did I leave that one off? And what should I be doing here? And oh, now I need to put that down and pick up the next thing. Where did I leave that off? What should I be doing here? Get your head in the space, put that down, get to the next one. Every time you switch, you lose time. So you'll notice that my big focus is all about maintaining that focus on one task at a time to reduce my switching time, reduce my work in progress, and now enabling me to maintain that greater focus. And I'm going to start showing that I get more things done that way. I get things done faster. But I can't say that enough, because that's a big part of how we succeed in getting things done, is by keeping our focus on what we're working on and enabling us to do more work by keeping it small bits, independent, focused. All right, so we've gotten our day done, or gotten through our day. And we're at the end of the day, and maybe your day looks like this, right? I've got a whole bunch of things that are moved off to the right-hand side of the paper, and I've had a really good time getting a lot of things done, but maybe something didn't get done today that I had planned for originally. So I call this my daily retrospective, where I'm just reviewing what has happened on the day, and I start asking myself a few questions. What tasks made me feel good about myself? What hindered my ability to complete some of my tasks? And really, has anything changed with the estimates or ordering that may have impacted the day? And this is where I don't beat myself up over not completing all my work, but I give myself some slack and recognition that life happens. Sometimes things just don't go perfectly. And I try to understand what made me feel good about the things that I did, and how did I complete all the things that I did complete? How did that work for me? And what could I change for the next day? Right? Should I change maybe an estimate or ordering or something else, or make the tasks smaller, make them bigger? Maybe I created too many really, really tiny tasks, and maybe they do need to be grouped a little bit more. So I spend a little bit of time looking at how the day went, and I begin to craft a plan for managing the next day. And of course, what happens to this task that didn't get done today? Do I automatically just move it to tomorrow? Or do I ask myself, when do I really need to get this done? Do I need to get this done tomorrow? By Wednesday? By Friday? Could I do it on the weekend? Do I need to do it? Can someone else do this? Maybe I have a partner. Maybe someone else could help. I can split the task into a few smaller bits that someone else could help me with it. Right? So don't automatically just move things to the next day when they don't get done today. Ask yourself, do they really need to get done? And I'll adjust my plan, my weekly plan. And notice my weekly plan now gets updated every day. Right? Every day I get a chance to review things and make some updates and changes. And that's really how you adapt to your constant changing life. All right. So I've got 2 more steps. So that was step 5, reviewing your day. Don't beat yourself up. Look at what was successful for you and try to help and maintain that on the next day. The next is all of those stickies that you wrote. And I bet you there are some that won't even get done this week. And things that maybe you're carrying in your head that you didn't write down just yet, but you know they're coming. Things that are going to happen in, I don't know, the upcoming weeks or months. But things that you still want to remember, like pricing out new tires for your car. Doesn't need to get done right away, but you know that's something that's coming along. Gosh, summer's coming eventually. Identify 2 vacation locations for the family. Maybe you're going to start thinking about summer trips. Maybe there are training opportunities for the current quarter that you'd like to identify with your employer. And maybe there's a first draft of an employee review happening, right? So you can just start to see these are things that I don't need to do this week, but maybe they're next week. Maybe they're the week after that, but I don't want to forget them. So I put them on something called my backlog. And I will estimate them, just like you see, we estimated all the other ones, and I will order them as best as I can and in the order that I felt that they needed at this time to get done. And if there are any due dates required on anything, I'll put that on there. Now, none of these I identified a due date, but I do that on occasion. If there's something that's required on a due date time, I will put that on there as well. So I'm going to give you a chance. Spend 2 minutes and create your own backlog for items that are not on your weekly to-do list. So use the backlog sheet. If you need an extra sheet of paper, go grab one. And just start creating a few things, moving them on over. And remember to estimate them. You're probably carrying some around in your head. I will venture that guess. And if you don't get the backlog so perfectly ordered, that's fine too. Just begin to get something out there. So that was just a 2-minute taste on getting a few things on your backlog. Hopefully you've got somewhat of a list. How did that feel? Getting, again, more things out of your head, the things that maybe aren't required this week, but just beginning to put up a place for those things that you know are coming. All right, so there's one last step on my plan, my 7-step plan, and that is list your outstanding items. So you've done a great job in identifying all the work that you need to get done. You've written your tasks for them. You go through each day at a time. You've completed your tasks. You've moved them over to the right-hand column. You're motoring your way through. And likely, because we don't all work totally independently and on our own, we're often dependent on other people, like getting feedback from another person to help me finish that report that I'm working on. I'm waiting for something from somebody else. And the moment that I start waiting for something from someone else, I create what I call my outstanding items sticky. This is where I use the 3x3 Post-it. And I write on the top of it outstanding or outstanding items. And I'll identify what am I waiting for and from whom and what date do I need it by. So look at that first example. I'm waiting for feedback from marketing on a timeline, and I need it by March 31st. So I begin to write them on here, and I leave it on the top right of my sheet, and it's there. I move it to top right of the sheet for every day. So my Monday sheet does look like that. My Monday sheet does look like that. There's my outstanding items. I have a whole bunch of them on my Monday sheet, and my Monday sheet just has one last thing on it, which is the seminar right now, and a whole bunch of things done. So that's what my Monday sheet looks like, and that outstanding items moves with me every day. And you see I cross things out as they get done, as people respond, and I get feedback back. And yes, my outstanding item is actually really crowded. It's going to get rewritten probably tomorrow because I run out of room. I have no more room to list outstanding items, so I will rewrite it. This helps me because it helps me avoid last-minute rushes, right? I've reached out to someone else. I'm waiting for information back from someone, and rather than forget about it, and then at the last moment realizing, oh my gosh, marketing never got back to me, and now this report is due in like an hour, and now I'm running around like a chicken without a head, trying to get the data, or asking for extensions, or apologizing that I can't get the work done. So I want to avoid all of that, and I keep the reminders of what am I waiting for. And why do I do that? It's nice to know that it's there, but what am I going to do with that when I see that I'm waiting for something and they haven't gotten back to me? I gently nudge people, because everybody is following the Agile at Home method. Not everybody has got all of their stuff organized so perfectly that they never forget of tasks people asked of them. Things never fall off of their plates, right? They do. And sometimes it is just an honest mistake that they've forgotten, it fell off their plate, they got distracted. And often people are actually appreciative of a little bit of a reminder that, oh yes, that's right, I meant to get back to you on that. Yes, I'll get that to you. So it's always there for me as a reminder to ping others if I haven't gotten the data back and the information back in time. So the heart of all of this, as you start to see, right, we are creating these almost ceremonies that we are working through. Every day, I start the day with what am I working on, what's on my sheet. I finish the day. I have a pattern of how I work things through every day. I move things from the column left to right. I write new tasks. I replan. The end of every day, I review and how did things go. At the end of the week, I review. I pull things from the backlog and create another weekly plan. This starts to become a ceremony for me in a positive way. This becomes part of my day every day. And this becomes really a key for me to being motivated for getting things done. So at the heart of this is just keeping this as a ceremony, right? Something that you do every day. And my goal is, again, with this being a tactile sense of having something physical that we work with, that we're tying into those parts of our brain that work with physical items. And that is a motivator for us, and that we begin to get that positive feedback as I work with things and I move things over. And at the end of the week, I have a whole bunch of work that got done, and I can clear out my sheets and I start afresh for the next week. It just starts to feel good that I've got work accomplished, and that's helping me get motivated. And that motivation is to help us as we tend to procrastinate and find our odd little work aversion behaviors. This is really working to account for that and help us overcome that. So it's become the ceremony, and it's portable, right? So for everyone who says, well, gosh, I don't want to have this on paper, can't I just have this on some electronic thing because I want to be able to take it wherever I am? Well, this is portable too. I have every sheet is right there, and I put it in a green file folder. We have that right there on my desk. My green file folder, and all my sheets are in here. So I can take this wherever I go. And I'm always looking at just today's sheet. My whole plan is always with me. My backlog is with me. I might even have a separate little backlog for a special project I'm working on, like my book backlog. And I can take it with me. So it's not a static item, and I can always have it by my side as needed. And I started playing around with something. So I know breaking work down and breaking things down into smaller chunks can be a challenge for some folks. So I started to play with things like ChatGPT to break work down for me. And I took something like, speaking about a report, and I'm going to be working with a group that's a bunch of students that will be writing things like literature reviews and huge research reports. So I asked ChatGPT to break down a literature review into smaller steps. And it created this nice list of activities. Each one of these could be a small little sticky that I can estimate and then plan, because I'm not going to do it all in one day. I won't do this all in one sitting. And looking at this with these 7 to 9 steps that just I keep going, I start to lose the will to live. I jokingly say, right? This starts to feel overwhelming. But I can start breaking it down. I can take each one of these, put it on a sticky, and then I can plan it out. Some I'll do this week, some I may do next week, right? They will be in my backlog. Not everything happens right away. But I can use tools that will help me begin to break the work down and help me define what might be a better way to manage the work. So I'm hoping I'm giving you some activities and some steps, some ideas to get a better handle on your work and to be able to make some more progress in getting the things done. So you have today, by working through this, you've got your own version, right, of your weekly plan. And I would love to see, so can you hold up to your cameras, what does your weekly plan look like? Do you have a few sheets? Do you have a sheet or two of paper that you can show? Let's take a look at what people are creating. Anyone? Are you shy? Oh, there we are. Great, Greg, you've got one. Yep. Terrific. And Jean, you've got yours on a sheet, on what looks like a card. I will challenge you.
It's a wrist rest.
It's a wrist rest. I will challenge you to put it onto paper and create your weekly plan. So terrific. Yes.
So
mine's very much in process, but I can't really see it, can you?
Yes, it's hard when you've got the background. Yes, I love it. So great. I'm glad to see things begin to come up. And so I'm opening up for questions and comments. We're scheduled to go until 8:30, and it's 8:26. We have about 4 minutes left. So questions.
I have another approach.
Yes.
This is actually a custom-made book
Mm-hmm.
called an accordion book, and it opens like that.
Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
And it has Post-its in it, by the way.
I love it.
Uh, you
Love
would
it.
need, for your approach, you'd need a larger size than this.
Right.
It's like one Post-it per page,
Ooh.
and it has two sides too, so you can.
Yes, I see that. Oh, I'm going to look that one up. And it's called an accordion book.
Yeah, it's kind of book paper arts. So it's actually attended a workshop where I made that, but
I love that. I'm going to look to see if that such a thing exists, because that also is a nice portable approach.
also here's a very handy plastic case. It happens to fit these size Post-its, not the larger ones.
Yes.
And but I found that they're not actually 1 3/8 by 1 7/8. They're actually 1.5 by 2 inches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why they lie about the size, but
that works too. And it depends on where you're getting them from. Some are the 1.5 by 2 inches, one are the 1 3/8 by 1 7/8, basically the same size. We're 1/8 of an inch off. So yeah, we're there.
well, 3M makes them a little larger than what they say on the package.
Yes, and I think that's the case. Right. They really do make them a little bit
It's
bigger.
close enough.
But I wanted to be specific to what you would be ordering when you say
Right.
I'm looking for them. If you want 3M, that's what you'll see on the package.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a real key, Greg, is I do have these all over the house, right? So when I'm reminded of something, when I'm walking past that room that says, oh, I need to, have the kids pick something up, or the grandkids pick something up, or I need to, get a load of laundry in, or, oh, I remembered this other work project that I needed to get done. I try to have these in many places throughout the house so that I
So
can.
you haven't worked different colors. You haven't worked in different color Post-its?
I do not, but I do know a lot of people that do. And a lot of people like to use different colors for projects, for different project that you're pulling from. I have in the past used different colors, a certain color for a task that I do every day, or a recurring task. Maybe there's something weekly that I do. And I might have like a bright pink one that's used for like doing my mail management, because that is a daily thing.
Did that stick, or did you go to just the regular yellow ones?
I just like the yellow ones, and for me the color is distracting to have to think about, oh gosh, what color should this one be? And I just find it too distracting. But for many people, colors are an enabler. So go for it. I'm glad you mentioned that, because
Are you aware that 3M has an app, a mobile app called Post-it? Have you seen that?
I have not.
It not only lets you make Post-its on your phone, but it actually scans physical Post-its and translates the text and captures it, converts it to text, what you've written on the Post-its.
And it'll give you a map. Like if you take a picture of your Post-its on a wall, it will actually take that picture and digitize it so that the Post-its are in the locations with the text on them.
But it will locate the Post-its on the wall,
Right.
and it will translate them into text in a spreadsheet, for example.
Right. That could be really useful for team projects. I like that idea very much. If you're working with groups of people and you're creating and you're brainstorming and you've got all these Post-its on the wall, it's always been a challenge to capture that information at the end. I'm happy to hear that there are apps for that that can create it and capture that electronically. I like that, and I'm always interested in playing with things. But I know for all the years that we've been humans and we work with a physical medium, I found that what finally got me past the procrastination and the work aversion was having something very physical and tangible and in front of me at all times that I could carry around and work with. And this is what has worked to, for me and for many, that kept us going. The electronic stuff starts to become the out of sight and out of mind in the bad way, that unless I've got a screen up constantly, that is like my task list, it's going to be out of sight the moment I walk away from my desk. and now I get distracted easily into something else.
Well, realize that 3M is giving away the app. They want you to use the app, so you buy their Post-its. Because it works with Post-its. It's not a general purpose tool.
I will take a look at their app. Maybe there's a good way to incorporate that. Thank you. Terrific.
I was going to ask about skeuomorphism because I've tried a whole bunch of different apps. And I've gone from Trello to things that do Eisenhower matrices, back to Trello, back to things that do Eisenhower matrices. But the one thing that is a physical thing that you do when you have the Trello or the Eisenhower matrix is that you do have to like drag and move stuff around based on where it fits in the matrix or where it goes in the Kanban. And I'm currently working with an app called TickTick, which will actually let me look at everything in an Eisenhower matrix, or I can just look at like one of many projects and look at that one project as a Kanban.
That's nice. Yeah.
And then, but I haven't found a way to look at a calendar by Kanban yet.
And it's still, you have to have the app open. You have to have it up on your screen. And what happens when you walk away? What happens when you go from, and I do this at home, literally one room to the next. That these sheets go with me because these are all combined activities, personal and work. And yes, you may be able to have it on your phone, but do you
it's
have
on a leash for a reason.
And that's my one caveat. If you're going to use something like a screen-based activity or screen-based tool, then you have to have something open all the time that's got that up on it that mimics what you have on paper. So
well, that's why
a dedicated screen that, maybe you've got multiple monitors and one can be open for that. And that's my caveat, because you don't ever want to run into the out of sight, out of mind, where it's now, if you don't have it in front of you and you're going to forget that you had 3 more things yet to do today, but you've walked away from the screen and now it's easy to get distracted. And then you've lost 20, 30, 40 minutes. You come back and go, oh my gosh, now I'm behind. So that's my one caveat on using electronics.
Good thing I have 3 screens.
Good thing. Yes.
If you
and
count the
multiples
phone.
of those, indeed.
Yeah, my office kind of looks like an air traffic controller's desk.
Excellent. Well, I'm also mindful of the time. It's it's 8:35. I'm going to let people get back to their evenings. I want to thank everyone for joining and for being here. Let me just check the chat window. I've had a few people who need to leave. Great. And Sandra, thank you for the comment that you're a kinesthetic person and you like the physical aspect. I hope it works for you. I've really been enjoying it too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for coming. And Jean, if you want to stay on the line, we can kibitz for a moment. I'll even turn the recording off.
Oh, okay.
Great. Thanks. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Duncan. Thank Greg. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll catch you another time.
Yes, you will. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.